The middle cranial fossa is the most important among the three cranial fossa because it has number of cranial foramina that are going to transmit the most important structures of head and neck. The middle cranial fossa is shaped like that of a butterfly. The central part is small whereas the lateral part is expanded. The expanded lateral part will lodge the temporal lobes of the cerebral hemisphere, whereas the central small part will lodge the pituitary gland or the hypophysis cerebri. Coming to the bones contributing to the middle cranial fossa, this is the upper surface of the body of the sphenoid, the greater wing of the sphenoid. Just lateral to it, this is the inner surface of the squamous part of the temporal bone. This triangular projection or the pyramidal projection of bone that we see here is the petrous part of the temporal bone. The anterior surface of the petrous part of the temporal bone contributes to the middle cranial fossa, whereas the posterior part of the petrous part of the temporal bone contributes to the posterior cranial fossa. And this part here, that is part of the parietal bone. So the bones contributing to the middle cranial fossa include the upper surface of the body of sphenoid, the greater wing of sphenoid, the inner surface of the squamous part of the temporal bone, the anterior surface of the petrous part of the temporal bone, and a part of the parietal bone. The sphenoid bone, what we see here in the central median part, the upper surface of the body of the sphenoid bone, anteriorly this area is called the sulcus chiasmaticus. It lodges the optic chiasma. This area is called the sella turcica. The sella turcica is further divided into three parts: the tuberculum sellae, the hypophyseal fossa, and the dorsum sellae. This bar of bone that we see here, that's the tuberculum sellae. Over the side, it presents a small projection called the middle clinoid process. Remember, the lesser wing of the sphenoid and the jugum sphenoidal are the contribution of the sphenoid bone to the anterior cranial fossa, and over the medial end of the lesser wing of the sphenoid we had a projection called anterior clinoid process. There is a ligament connecting the anterior clinoid process of the lesser wing of the sphenoid to the middle clinoid process of the tuberculum sellae. It's called the carotidoclinoid ligament. This ligament converts this area into a foramen, through which the internal carotid artery takes a upward course. Behind the tuberculum sellae, this shallow area, it's called the hypophyseal fossa. It lodges the pituitary gland. Actually, it is covered by a dural fold called diaphragma sellae, and the stalk of the pituitary comes out through the diaphragma sellae. This part of the bone that we see here, it's called the dorsum sellae. From the sides of the dorsum sellae, there is a small bony projection that's called the posterior clinoid process. This posterior clinoid process is attached to the apex of the petrous part of the temporal bone by means of a ligament called petrosphenoid ligament. And the abducent nerve or the sixth cranial nerve passes beneath this ligament. On the sides of the body of the sphenoid, this area, it's called the carotid sulcus. This carotid sulcus lodges the internal carotid artery, which is surrounded by the sympathetic plexus of nerves. Coming to the features on the anterior surface of the petrous part of the temporal bone. So this is the apex which gives attachment to the petrosphenoid ligament. Just behind the apex, this depressed area, the dural fold covering this area is called the Meckel's cave or the trigeminal cave. This shallow part lodges the trigeminal ganglion. Just behind that, the bony elevation that we see here is called the arcuate eminence. Beneath it, we have the anterior semicircular canal of the inner ear. This thin plate of bone that we see behind the arcuate eminence, it's called the tegmen tympani. This tegmen tympani, it forms the roof for the mastoid process posteriorly. It forms the roof for the middle ear cavity. It also contributes to the roof for the auditory canal. This petrous part of the temporal bone actually lodges the middle ear and the internal ear. So these are the features of the petrous part of the temporal bone: the trigeminal cave, the arcuate eminence, and the tegmen tympani. Over the tegmen tympani, we can see two foramen. The lateral one, this is for the lesser petrosal nerve. It exits out and lies in this groove. The groove and the foramen for the lesser petrosal nerve. The medial one, that's for the greater petrosal nerve. It comes out through that and lies over the groove for the greater petrosal nerve. The lesser petrosal nerve is coming from the ninth cranial nerve, the glossopharyngeal nerve, whereas the greater petrosal nerve is a branch from the seventh cranial nerve, the facial nerve. This is the greater wing of the sphenoid. These are the foramina lying over the greater wing of the sphenoid. If you look closely, you can appreciate this suture which actually separates the greater wing of the sphenoid from the squamous part of the temporal bone. This red color that you see here is actually the impression produced by the middle meningeal vessels. Now, let's come to the foramen present over the middle cranial fossa. What you see over here, that is the optic canal. The optic canal lies between the two roots of the lesser wing of sphenoid. Just lateral to it, this one is the superior orbital fissure. It's bounded above by the lesser wing of sphenoid, below by the greater wing of sphenoid, and medially by the body of the sphenoid. This superior orbital fissure is further divided into three compartments: the lateral compartment, intermediate compartment, and the medial compartment. The optic canal and the superior orbital fissure is the communication between the orbit and the middle cranial fossa. Whereas the foramen that we saw for the greater and the lesser petrosal nerve is actually communication between the ear and the middle cranial fossa. To be specific, the middle ear cavity and the middle cranial fossa. This is the greater wing of the sphenoid. Over that we can see the four foramina. Foramina rotundum. This communicates the middle cranial fossa with the pterygopalatine fossa. This one, foramen ovale. Behind that, the small one, that's the foramen spinosum. The foramen ovale and the foramen spinosum, they communicate the middle cranial fossa with the infratemporal fossa. This one is the foramen lacerum. It lies between the apex of the petrous part of the temporal bone and the body of the sphenoid bone. The margins of this is not well defined. It's sort of lacerated. Hence, it is called the foramen lacerum. The foramen lacerum anteriorly communicates with the pterygoid canal and posteriorly it receives the upper opening of the carotid canal. Now coming to the structures passing through these foramen, the optic canal transmits the optic nerve. The ophthalmic artery lies inferolateral to the optic nerve. The superior orbital fissure, the lateral compartment transmits the lacrimal nerve, the frontal nerve, the trochlear nerve, and the superior ophthalmic veins. The intermediate compartment transmits the oculomotor nerve, nasociliary nerve, and the abducent nerve. The medial compartment transmits the inferior ophthalmic veins. The foramen rotundum, as I told you, it communicates the middle cranial fossa with the pterygopalatine fossa. Through this, the maxillary nerve exits. The foramen ovale transmits the male structures MALE, mandibular nerve, accessory meningeal artery, lesser petrosal nerve, and emissary vein. The foramen spinosum transmits the middle meningeal artery and nervus spinosus. Foramen lacerum, actually I told you, the posterior part of it receives the upper opening of the carotid canal. So the internal carotid artery enters the cranial cavity through this. An anterior wall of the foramen lacerum is related to the posterior part of the pterygoid canal. So the nerve of the pterygoid canal is related to the anterior part of this. The sella turcica lodges the pituitary gland. The roof of the sella turcica is formed by a circular dural fold called diaphragma sellae. The diaphragma sellae anteriorly attaches to the tuberculum sellae, posteriorly to the dorsum sellae. The stalk of the pituitary gland, it passes through the diaphragma sellae to reach the hypothalamus. The posterior clinoid process gives attachment to the anterior end of the attached margin of tentorium cerebelli. The middle cranial fossa contains the important dural venous sinuses, and the most important one among them is the cavernous sinus. The cavernous sinus are paired and they are situated on either side of the body of the sphenoid. These cavernous sinuses are anteriorly connected by the anterior intercavernous sinus and posteriorly by the posterior intercavernous sinus. Over the posterior margin of the lesser wing of sphenoid, we have the sphenoparietal sinus. This is the petrous part of the temporal bone, and that's the squamous part of the temporal bone, and at the junction between them we have the petrosquamous suture. Over this we have the petrosquamous sinus. Petrosquamous dural venous sinus. The upper border of the petrous part of the temporal bone is related to the superior petrosal sinus. The red color that you see here is the impression produced by the middle meningeal vessels.